Moratorium Now Coalition views the current cutbacks in education as being part and parcel of the overall economic crisis in this country and throughout the world. One of the slogans that we advanced last night at the state capitol was bail out the students, not the banks. We have a situation in this country where education, housing, health care, fundamental social services are on the chopping block. The banking sector in the United States in the fall of 2008 was given a direct grant, so to speak. They claim it was a loan. It was actually a grant of over $700 billion. This was our tax money that was turned over to the banks. And why was the money turned over to the banks? Because the banks had literally, through their own drive towards profit making, their own drive towards dominance in the overall domestic and world economy, had utilized all types of methods to maximize their profits. Things that were totally unproductive, that did not create work, that actually created situations where wages were driven down, where unemployment increased. And all of this created tremendous contradictions, even within the capitalist system itself. As a result of that, the international financial sector was on the brink of collapse in 2008. And what did they do? They came to the taxpayers and they said, bail us out. And then they told us that if you don't bail us out, the entire system is going to collapse. So in the U.S. Congress, there was a big furor over this. They had two votes. The initial vote, they voted it down. They voted the bailout down because the public pressure was so enormous. People were calling their Congress people. People were in the streets. I mean, we're having demonstrations almost every other day in downtown Detroit. People with bus drivers. People in their cars were driving down the street blowing horns when we were chanting, bail out the people, not the banks. Just spontaneously in 1 week, during September of 2008, there were 200 demonstrations across the United States. Because people were definitely opposed to this bailout. But they had a second vote. And they took them into a closed room, the Congress people, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and they caved in. So we have TARP, which is still in existence right now. But the thing about it, TARP never created any jobs for people. It just made it poor. It just created more unemployment. In the last 2 years, we've lost over 8.2 million jobs in the United States. Now they're talking about it's a jobless recovery. There's no such thing as a jobless recovery. There's no recovery. They talk about profits in the banking sector. They talk about profits in other sectors of the economy, like the automotive industry. But what they don't talk about is that they've taken hundreds of billions of dollars from the people and laid off millions of people. So yeah, they can show a profit. They can, doctor their books in a way that they can show a profit. So what we're saying is that in order to address this crisis, we have to organize. We have to organize in all sectors of the workforce and the labor force. And that's what the Moratorium Now Coalition is trying to do. To hook up with labor, to hook up with students, to hook up with the unemployed, and to form a real solid militant social movement in this country. Even more militant than what we saw during the 1930s. Now we know in the 1930s they had what they call the Great Depression. And they talk about the New Deal, which came in 1933, 4 years after the Great Depression. And they talk about the programs that was enacted by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the president at that time. But what they don't talk about is the fact that you had unemployed councils, you had all types of mass organizations and trade unions that were in formation during that time period, which created a crisis, a social crisis in this country that forced the government to enact these social measures, Social Security, unemployment insurance, a moratorium on foreclosures. All of this was enacted as a result of the struggle. People fought tremendously, people went to jail, some people even lost their lives between 1930 and 1934. The crisis is deepening. No matter what they tell us, we can see all types of evidence of it. So this is why we're supporting the March 4th Day of Action that Larry is here to talk about, because the students themselves, the reason why we had such a massive expansion in higher education during the 1960s and the 1970s was because of the struggle that was being waged. The civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, the anti-war movement, all the social groups that evolved after World War II, they made these demands on the capitalist system, on the federal government. And because there were millions of people in the streets, because there were people really seeking a genuine alternative to this system of racism and economic exploitation, the government granted these concessions. That's why we had scholarships for working class students. We never had that before. Grants for African American students and other students of color. They didn't just give these things to us. They came out of the struggle. People sacrificed for these things. Open admission of universities, allowing African American and other oppressed groups, women, into law schools, into engineering programs, into medical school. It was very rare before the 1960s that you had women even in the engineering program at a university, even at Wayne State. Very rare to even have women in medical school or in law school. So this is what we have to reteach ourselves, and we have to go back in order to move forward. We have to recognize that we have a legacy of struggle, and to draw on that legacy of struggle, but at the same time updating it to coincide with the crisis that's going on today. So that's why I'm so encouraged to see the March 4th action that's going to be taking place next month, and we want to support that. The students have to stand up, otherwise they're going to be out on the street just like a lot of workers are out on the street today. So I want to welcome Brother Larry Hills. I've known him for several years now. He's somebody who's tireless. He travels all over the country organizing young people. He's with this group called Fight Imperialism, Stand Together, which is a very progressive youth organization that's national. And we need to encourage FIST and encourage the young people to get political and to continue this organizing work that's been initiated over the last several months. Thank you very much.